The agenda is sponsored by Newcastle County Government.
Community. I really wanted to teach public school coming out of college. I got a little sidetracked. I'll give you my opinion, but what's your opinion?
Well, it's a fundamental thing like that we can help teach them while they're here.
Hands up, I have questions.
Not as much as I would like to see.
People are waiting for the money to roll out.
Well, that money won't roll out for weeks or months, but we are this close to finalizing the text of the bill.
Latino population, it affects them disproportionately more than any other population.
It was just set aside because of the pandemic, but it allowed us to do virtual programs.
Down during the pandemic, it was just too unreliable.
Really? This week on the agenda, we're going to take a look at all the episodes that we've done thus far. Believe it or not, it's been over 6 months of the agenda and ensuring that your topic, everything from legislative hall to town hall to your municipality, is brought forward so you can see it. You can talk to your representatives here on the show. You can talk to your police chief here on the show. So in this episode, we're going to go through and take a look at everything that we've talked about and some favorites. So we look forward to seeing you here on the agenda. On a trip to your local grocery store, you may have noticed some of your favorite items missing from the shelves. Frozen chicken, bread, paper products. The inventory of every grocery, pharmacy, and department store passes through an intricate chain of manufacturing and logistics. When one section of the chain lags, the entire system crumbles. Hi, I'm Kerwin Gaines, and welcome to the agenda. The chaos and unpredictability of COVID-19 pandemic has exposed critical weaknesses in our global economy. The vast and interconnected global marketplace faced unprecedented shutdowns and shortages, forcing global companies to recontextualize their relationships with their international partners and us, the consumers. The initial spread of COVID-19 sent shockwaves and paranoia and distrust between global superpowers and their respective centers of industry. The widespread shortages of critical medical supplies and the U.S.-China trade war have heightened sentiments of economic nationalism. Domestically, this issue just doesn't affect the materials being used to make things. The human labor market is in the midst of its greatest crisis. In May of 2021, there were 8.3 million job openings nationally, the highest ever recorded. I'm sure that you at home have noticed low wait staffs at restaurants, or having to book an oil change days or even weeks in advance. People just aren't enticed to give up unemployment benefits for low-wage jobs. How does this affect us in Delaware? Well, if you care about your snacks at Wawa or having enough servers at your local restaurant, then this affects you on a daily basis. We're here in Middletown, Delaware, the 1861 Bourbon Bar. We're going to speak with Ashley Stratton, the proprietor. She's going to tell us why she's having trouble with employment, why she's having trouble getting food, and why she's having trouble getting bourbon in a bourbon bar. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for the invitation to 1861 here in Middletown, Delaware.
Thank you for coming.
It's not a secret. I've been here before. You know I'm fond of this place here. But I'm worried that you're worried. You're worried because there's obviously a staffing shortage, right?
Right.
So take us, I want to rewind back time just a little bit, okay? March 13th, 2020.
My birthday.
That's your birthday. Okay, so you remember it vividly.
Yeah, very vividly.
Tell us a little bit about it here at 1861.
Well, I was in Mexico celebrating my 30th birthday.
Okay.
We got a phone call from our bartender saying that we had to close the restaurant at 8:30. He didn't know what to do. We were all in a panic, especially being out of the country. We didn't know what to do, so we locked the doors. And it was a really hopeless feeling, or helpless feeling. We didn't know what was happening. So when we came back, that's when we had to, switch gears and do carry out and figure out ways to keep the doors open. We were able to at least pay our bills, pay rent, and keep the machine moving.
I mean, it's amazing. Almost 900,000 people have not been laid off in the United States, but but have quit their restaurant, bar, or service position in the state, in the country. Have you been affected by that? By the quitting?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
We didn't lay anyone off.
Okay.
We randomly would just receive letters in the mail from unemployment.
Really?
Yeah, randomly. Staff stopped coming in. At first we understood, everyone was afraid of COVID. We were unsure of what was happening. So luckily, since we weren't, since the doors were closed and we were only doing carry out, we were able to work, me and my fiance work without needing too much staff.
Well, why do you think that's happening? Why do you think people are just quitting? You're getting some explanation. Talk to me about that.
To be blunt, I think, some people are making more money at home than they are actually physically going to work. One of the problems that we're facing right now is we're competing with corporations who can afford to pay our staff way more than what we can afford. We're just a mom and pop. We've lost a few staff members to Wawa, of all places, and Walmart, places that can afford to pay what we can't.
Now, is there also a supply chain issue?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. To compound on top of the other thing, now you have a supply chain issue as well.
Now we have a supply chain issue. So the demand is way up. And the supply doesn't match the demand. So we're busier than we've ever been with limited staff.
And that's such an interesting problem when we talked about it before. You said business is booming.
Booming.
Business is booming, and you don't have all of the amenities that you would have in a bourbon bar at your disposal, i.e. bourbon, and you do not have the necessary staffing.
Yeah.
So when you have a supply chain issue, you have a food issue, what happens to an inmate when they are released from federal or state penitentiary? Where do they go? What employment opportunities do they have? What support systems are available for them to avoid reincarceration? Saad Solomon, founder of Piece by Piece Incorporated, located in Bear, Delaware, is on a mission to mentor recently released inmates because for him, it's personal. Mr. Solomon, thank you so much for bringing us here, allowing us to see everything that's going on here, all the work that you're doing for your fellow man. How did you get to this point? Could you take us through it?
From 11 years old to the 17 years old, I would never have a stint of freedom longer than 7 months. So consecutively, almost my entire juvenile life was spent in detention centers. Sort of the kid.
I approach it from a capitalist point of view, as well as the fact that when somebody's incarcerated and put into prison, a lot of their stories, a lot of their families lose connections with them. Since I was too old to fight the school to prison pipeline, I decided if I could figure out a way to interrupt the recidivism cycle by providing an opportunity for people to not go back to prison, I will have served it.
You need 4 things to grow in an indoor vertical farm. Light, in which our case is a LED light, which state of the art, which mimics the sun. And if you can see, I'm touching it, and it is very cool. It's a cool light. Plants can grow all the way up to the top, which is why when you look up there, they grow above the lights and they grow around the lights because it doesn't hurt them, it doesn't burn the leaves. The second thing we need is water, which is city water. And the third thing we need is nutrients, which we add in a tank outside. And 24 hours a day, we feed the water to the plants. And then the last thing we need is carbon dioxide.
I mean, barely ever went to school, didn't care, just did whatever I wanted. So by the time I was, I'd say 13, 14, I started selling drugs. I was starving. I was starving. I was living off free school lunch, and then when summertime comes around, there's no school to go to, no lunch. And that's basically what I was going to school for. I wasn't doing my work.
My first run-in with the law was around 15. Around 15, I caught a attempt murder charge. I did 9 months in there. I came home And I was home around 28 days, and I caught another attempt murder charge. As a child, you just come back out and do what you do. You didn't learn a lesson yet.
First thing first, we start the seating process, which was last week. Once the seating process is done, what we do is, I'll show you in here, the Germination Room. Now we have what we call, these are rock wool cubes. Now in each sheet, there's 200 individual rock wool cubes, so that's 200 individual plants. So what we do is we seed it, we water it, we cut it down the edge, and then we spray it with trianum, which is a beneficial bacteria. So once that's done, we put covers over them like this, and then it starts the germination process.
The greatest issues are mental health. People are scarred before they go to prisons, surely scarred in prison, and coming out, they don't get healed, that's for sure. So we talk about second chances, but in effect, many of our people are third chances, fourth chances, and fifth chances that we have to give.
I don't think at the time, no, I didn't have any aspirations to be anything other than what I was in that moment. I was kind of living in that moment, day by day. Yeah, and I couldn't get out.
Yeah, because if you personally change, I mean, if your family members didn't change and your friends didn't change, you're guilty by association no matter what. So if I change my life, but I have a whole family of people that's doing wrong, people will implement you in it no matter if you work every day. So that's what people still got to deal with. When you change your life, it's still baggage along with it. That baggage is still there.
Programming is part of it. There's criminogenic thinking, meaning we have to teach offenders why they're committing crimes. What's wired in their brain that they think it's okay to break the law. We got to rewire that. And this cognitive behavioral therapy that we offer is geared towards helping inmates understand why they committed crimes in the first place and changing that cycle of behavior.
What obstacles are they facing? For viewers that don't know, that don't understand this world, what are some of the obstacles that these inmates are facing upon going back out into the world?
At least 25 to 30% are homeless. They're not used to a structure of getting up, setting an alarm, getting to work. They probably don't have a car, so they got to learn the bus system. It's fundamental things like that that we can help teach them while they're here and discipline them and coach them so that once they're released, they understand it's not okay to stand on a street corner and make a living. You got to figure out how to get a car, get car insurance, get on the bus, maybe get on 2 buses, and have that discipline to hold a job. The difference is DOC used to think about reentry the last 2 months of an offender sentence. We have flipped that on its head, and we now start planning for it their first 6 weeks of coming into a level 5 facility. So we know now that about 30% of our inmates don't have a high school diploma. If their sentence is 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, they're going to get a transition accountability plan. And in that time period, we have to get them a GED. We know that about 30% of our inmates walk in the door with construction skills. So their transition accountability plan is going to keep them on a construction track. They may say on their vocational skills assessment that they want to learn culinary arts so they can get a job in a restaurant. We'll build that into their time while incarcerated. And then the level 4 facility, the community corrections facility, will be a flow down to that, to continue that if they need an additional certification. You know, all the Amazons and the big distribution centers that are coming to Delaware. You've seen the videos. They go around in forklifts and they get the packages off. Who operates those forklifts? People who are in Plummer right now are getting that certification so they can walk out the door here and get a high-paying job at Amazon.
Let DART do the driving. DART First State provides transportation that is clean, safe, reliable, and affordable. Plan your trip and get real-time bus information with the free DART Transit app. Scan your phone to pay your fare with the free DART Pass app. So what are you waiting for? Try transit today. Visit dartfirststate.com or call 1-800-652-DART.
Auto accident, medical negligence, work injury? Contact Team Tice, your Delaware personal injury lawyers. Leroy Tice in Wilmington, Delaware, serving and supporting the people of Delaware. Call 302-489-2400. That's 302-489-2400. Online at teamtice.com.
This message is brought to you by Newcastle County Government.
Many wonder, what is a variant? A variant is a mutation or a change in the genetic sequence of the virus. Some of our methods of treating COVID-19 become ineffective. If we were to simply get vaccinated, we could decrease the spread and the likelihood that a mutation would form in the first place. Let's get vaccinated.
As Biden's CARES Act funds are distributed across the country, it is crucial that Delaware's allocation plan reaches the communities most victimized by COVID. This plan strives to distribute the nearly $1 billion of federal funds to organizations. The state is looking to relieve the damages caused by COVID and build a strong foundation for the future of Delaware and its people. I'm Kerwin Gaines, and this is The Agenda. Mr. Mattias, we are here again.
Nice to see you.
You are no stranger to The Agenda.
I'm not no stranger to you. We go way back.
Way back, that's right. And the last time you were on The Agenda, there was a uniform involved almost. There was khakis, there was boots. You looked like you meant business. And now you're in a whole different role. So, and it really wasn't that long ago. I would say about 90 days, maybe, give or take. Tell us a little bit about it.
When the governor asked me to go to Department of Correction, it was right after the riot and the murder. There were 40 plus reforms that needed to be put in place. That took about 2 years, and I did that as special assistant to the then commissioner. Through no plan of anyone, the then commissioner had over 30 years of service and retired. And the Correctional Officers Union and some other groups went to the governor and said, we'd really like Claire to do this. And the governor said, so would I, but I don't think she will. And as you can imagine, being there right after such an intense time and really working with the team to implement some very strong reforms and build morale back. I built a really strong bond with the officers and the probation team. And I said to the governor I would do it with the understanding that I would build a really strong team, stay for a year and a half, and then let that team really carry it forward. COVID hit, and you can't leave in the middle of that pandemic. So once we really got that under control, after 2 years as commissioner, I felt that the team was in place. I am confident the team was in place to carry through the reforms and keep morale up. So it was a logical stepping point. It was literally exactly 4 years from the time that I went to the Department of Correction. This job became an opportunity. Every state has somebody that the governor appoints to oversee and interact with the White House and the U.S. Department of Treasury on all of the federal funds coming to the states. In Delaware's case, we received $1 billion in CARES Act funding.
Wait a minute, one more time. How much?
$1 billion in CARES Act funding. Ooh. We've received $1 billion in American Rescue Plan funds, plus $1 billion plus in stimulus funds and rescue plan funds that went to various state agencies. So all told, we've already received over $3 billion. And separate and apart from that, if and when the federal infrastructure bill passes, Delaware will receive an additional $2.4 billion. Our state budget is about $5 billion, plus another $1 billion capital bond bill, all told $6 billion. You know, we've received, we at least already half of that in federal funds. So there's a lot of great projects out there, very positive, a lot of visionary projects, a lot of projects that without this infusion of federal dollars would take a lot longer to accomplish. And it is just a very positive opportunity to make some transformational, long-lasting changes in our state to continue what the governor has really been doing since he first took office. Investing in education, investing in our children, investing in quality of life so that it's a great place for all of us to live and work and play and go to school, and building our economy. Our economy was very strong pre-pandemic, and now the governor's focused on beating back COVID and rebuilding our economy using these federal funds, in addition to some very strong state funding. We're doing very well economically recovering from this pandemic from the corporate point of view, from the real estate transfer tax point of view. Now we have to make sure those dollars really get to the communities hardest hit by this pandemic, both health-wise, public safety-wise, and economically.
So public safety-wise, I'm just going to jump into that. Wilmington has some very tough zip codes, as you know, and I believe that we're sitting in one of them right now. And how can we be assured that those capital funds and all those monies available are really getting down to not just the constituents, I don't want to look at them that way, the people who need it? What are some safeguards that are in place to ensure that that's happening?
We have identified a corridor through the city of Wilmington. It's about 7 miles long of those zip codes that you reference that need housing, that need community centers and after school hour activities, that need energy efficiency. You know, there's some homes that don't have refrigerators that are just sucking energy. That the simple things like changing a light bulb. If we invest just in those small areas, then we can get at the larger areas of the social determinants of health in this corridor. There's a team, the HELP team, that goes door to door in communities, particularly focused on downtown community districts. And they literally start changing light bulbs. And then they go in and change the refrigerator out. And then as they gain people's trust, they figure out there's a kid in the house with asthma and they need a fan or an air conditioner. And then they work with that family to say, you know, one of our local hospitals has a health clinic right down the road here or right in your kid's school. So it's a comprehensive plan to address all of these issues. And truly, the reason that the governor invested so heavily in Reach Riverside, where we are now, is because it is that holistic, purpose-built community design.
Right.
It is not only housing, and housing is a huge piece of it, but it's making sure they have the community activities for children, for families. It's making sure they have a healthcare center nearby on premises, because you can't let health crises, build up, even from when you're young, certainly in older adults, so that you land in the emergency department. So it's that holistic, purpose-built community model that really resonated with the governor. And the Reach Riverside already had received funding from the General Assembly, so members of the General Assembly are supportive. And what the infusion of $26.4 million in federal funds will help is accelerate.
And that's what they've been awarded.
$26.4 million. Instead of this project taking over 20 years, with that infusion of federal dollars and some terrific fundraising on their part that they're doing philanthropically in the community, this community can be finished within 10 to 12 years. And that's a big difference to say, by a date certain, 2025, this is what we've done with these federal funds, to your point. What do we have to show for it?
Right.
And if you come back here in 2025, we're going to show you what we did with these funds.
We are here in the Teen Warehouse. This is my first time being here.
Oh.
So
this is a treat.
This is a treat,
Okay.
and I know you're going to tell us all about it.
Sure.
Okay.
So we are at the warehouse. It is for teens by teens. Teens designed this in partnership with an architect. Everything that you see was designed and handpicked by teens, from the color scheme to the technology. We were slated to open at the beginning of the pandemic, and then obviously everything was just set aside because of the pandemic, but it allowed us to do virtual programming. And we had teens signed up in Georgia participating in our virtual programming, like all over the country. So what it taught us is that although we built this facility and we want as many teens in here as possible on any given day, there are other ways that we can reach teens, whether they're in the city, the state, or in the entire country. So we plan for teens to be here in an after-school setting, but we understand that we still have to diversify how we reach teens if they can't make it to the building.
Okay, so I have two questions when it comes to that. I've had a very, very short tour, and you're going to take us through and show us everything. And when I go through the one hallway that I have, I've seen a state agency here on premise. I've seen basically an accountant here on premise and getting things done. So what all goes on in here?
Yeah, so aside from the services and the programmatic aspects, that we have on a day-to-day basis. We also have, like you said, state agency, Delaware State University here, Strive, that's a nonprofit, is here. Kingswood Academy, which is an alternative school, 7th to 12th grade, is here. Eastside Charter's honors program is here during the day. Yeah, and that's why we designed it the way we did. We wanted to be flexible enough that anyone can come in and use the space, but we wanted to be utilized as much as 24/7 as possible. So pretty much from sun up to sundown, it is occupied and active in this space, and that's what's most important for keeping youth out of trouble and doing constructive things. It really started, I was at Kingswood Community Center at the beginning of 2016. And my job going into Kingswood was to turn around Kingswood because it was about to go out of business. It had missed payroll. For 2 years, we were on a 13-week rolling cash flow.
Wow.
Yeah, and then what happened is I realized that teens weren't being served at Kingswood the way they should be. We didn't have space, we didn't have adequate resources, we just didn't have anything for teens. And as a matter of fact, because we serve children 12 and under, and we have child care licensing laws, we couldn't have teens in the building at the same time that we're doing child care. So I said, we got to do something specifically for teens because our teens are literally and figuratively being kicked out into the cold. And that's where the warehouse was kind of born conceptually.
Now I'm seeing homework, I'm seeing math homework. I don't even want to look at that. But there's so much going on in this area here. Is this like a multi-purpose room?
Yeah, so we call this like the central hub of the warehouse. All of this furniture is modular. You can break apart these tables, roll the chairs around. Each room is catered towards one of our 5 pillars: recreation, education, arts, career, and health.
Dealing in these tough zip codes that you deal with here in Wilmington, how about mental health with these students and these youngsters? How are you addressing that with all the stresses that they have post-COVID, COVID now? You have so much going on. I'm sure there are some programs to deal directly with that.
Absolutely. So 3 years ago, when we started working with teens to develop the warehouse and build out what you see today, there are 2 priorities that the teens wanted to address immediately: mental behavior health and reproductive health. And we will be addressing that. We are addressing that. We have a partnership with Christiana Care, and we will be building out a space for them to get access to all of the health needs that they may have. I remember one of our teens addressing her peers, and she said, I had a really tough time with my mother, and we started going to family counseling, and because of that, my mother and my relationship is stronger than it ever has been. So her being brave enough to talk in front of her peers about that really allowed them to dive deeper into that and say, we all need a little bit more support.
But having a safe space for her to do that.
Absolutely. So we'll be providing group sessions where they can work with one another and individual sessions.
As soon as I got here, I just felt the warm embrace of the community, man. Like what y'all got going on is wonderful. And no wonder y'all called the work group, because y'all putting that work in. For real, seriously, y'all getting the work done.
We are committed to creating the best Riverside we can with the community, for the community.
This message is brought to you by Newcastle County Government.
Hi, I'm Dr. Neil Hochstein at ENT and Allergy of Delaware. We're very fortunate to have been protected by the vaccine for COVID-19, but I still encourage you, when you're indoors, when you're around groups of people, wear your mask. New variants have resulted in breakthrough infections, and while you may be protected and you may not get sick, you can still pass it on to your friends and neighbors who are a little bit more vulnerable than you. Stay safe, wear a mask when indoors and around people. Thank you.
We received $26.4 million from the state through American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Thank you to the governor, thank you to Claire DeMatteis for recognizing the hard work that we're doing, and we are accelerating our homes, our houses that we're building because of that investment into our community. It will allow us to build another 200 homes almost immediately in the sense of building homes. It will take us from 141 homes to 350.
Let me stop you there, Logan. These aren't the homes that you normally see on the riverfront that a lot of people can't afford. These are homes that are going to look a lot like that people can afford, right?
Yeah, so to give you an example, each unit that we build costs about $300,000 to build.
Right.
So it's one thing, affordable house isn't affordable, and we're building a mixed income neighborhood where anyone can live in this neighborhood regardless of their income.
Great, great. Well, something tells me you're not finished.
But we're not finished by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you for being on the agenda. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
None of this would have been possible without you and your interaction. So from all of us here at The Agenda, we want to say thank you for this year's episodes and for many more to come. Happy holidays